I resent its cynically shallow pessimism disguised as apple pie sentimentalism, its artistic laziness, and its technical sloppiness.
I like the voice you've chosen for this, actually. I think this fits.
I resent its condescending attitude towards its audience.
What?
Is it condescending?
I resent this person.
It's a testament to the colossal continuing dumbing down of movie audiences, and it managed to knock me into the worst state of depression I've experienced from a movie in years.
Wow. Seek help.
That was a 1-star review.
I got nothing
from IMDb. Hello, and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Ryan, joined as always by Andrew.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi, diddly-ho there, neighbor.
And in this episode, we're talking about Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. But before we jump into that and our thoughts on that, we were kind of thinking, like, you know, this movie has kind of a conflict that the character has to overcome, but not really like a twirl your mustache villain.
There's no one sitting in a dark corner going,
yeah,
there's the black hole is not sitting there.
It's me, Anti-Stellar. I'm here to stop you. So we thought we would talk about
it coming.
It's me, your terrible math skills. I'm here to haunt you. So we thought we would talk about other movies that don't really have a traditional villain. Right?
Now they can't be like easy ones where there's like slice of life shows or whatever. Yeah, like it has to have something.
It can be.
Okay, it can be apparently. Never mind.
Apparently, yeah.
We're just writing the rules as we go.
That's not what I picked.
Who?
I'm not saying that's what I picked either, but
then why are we bringing it up?
he brought it up first.
Yes, you go first.
No, that's fine. He can go first.
He said that with such passion.
What a swing!
No, Steven.
Fine.
Like full Mark Hamill on me over here. So I went with 2003's Big Fish.
Okay.
I haven't seen this movie, so I have no opinion.
Whoa, really?
Sit in the corner and be quiet.
Yeah, right?
This has Ian McGregor in it, though, doesn't it?
It does. That's why I'm shocked you haven't seen it.
He's such a dreamboat.
He is a dreamboat.
He is. So this is based on a 1998 novel. Mm-hmm. And basically, the screenwriter read a manuscript of the novel before it was published and convinced Columbia Pictures to acquire the rights to this film.
Wow.
Like, just off the strength
Was this
of
film
that.
a success?
What's the plot summary of this?
So the plot summary...
No, answer my question first, Steven.
Is a moderate box office success. Is a critical success.
Moderate box
box
office.
office.
Got it. Now you can tell us the synopsis.
now I don't want to know it.
So basic storyline here is we have a father and son. Mm-hmm. The son is played by Ian McGregor.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He'd be a little bit too old to be a father in this.
Maybe.
Around this time.
I mean,
don't hold
you can
him
have babies
down.
at age 13.
Right? Yeah, like
don't
bet against
Don't go
him.
down that
Don't
road.
bet
Ewan was
against him.
out there just living it up.
Don't bet against him here.
Yeah.
So his father's played by Albert Finney. I don't know if that helps you at all here.
No, it doesn't.
The look on Andrew's face said it didn't.
I didn't clear anything up for him.
Me and Steven both looked over at Andrew's face.
I was like, I don't know that name. I'm not going to look it up.
I've never heard a face flatline before.
So basically, the son. So at his wedding, right? Mm-hmm. His father gets up and gives a speech and tells a story. It's essentially a tall tale, a yarn. Mm-hmm. And this is a long point of contention between he and his son, where his son is a fact-finding journalist, right? Gets to the bottom of things. And his dad has always, in the son's mind, told fantasies.
Tall tales, yeah.
Tall tales as a way to protect having to actually deal with reality, essentially.
Did they have loss, like their mother died?
No, the mother's there.
Oh, okay.
No, there's nothing like that.
She's just hard to put up with, I think, probably. It's even worse.
It's very much so. So I saw a really good quote about this film that actually was, I don't know if it was from Tim Burton or if somebody else involved in the product, or in the production product.
We're making a product
They're
here.
making a product. They are making a product. This is true. Who basically said... they related to this, right? Tim Burton had just lost his father and had difficulties reconciling.
Yeah.
And one of them, they basically said the quote was, it was like we were strangers who knew each other very well. Mm-hmm. Mm. So they don't get along.
Okay.
Right? So plot progresses and he comes back to his father on basically his deathbed. Mm-hmm. So determined to pin down, learn more about his dad at this point. Mm-hmm. He starts really researching the stories his dad is telling, and his dad is supplying more stories throughout this. And he keeps kind of jumping back and forth between
reality and...
Actually, sorry, the son's not played by Ewan McGregor. Young Albert Finney is Ewan McGregor.
That's right.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
I was like, hold on, I messed this up. Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that because I haven't seen this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, see, that's why I corrected it, just for you, Andrew.
That's why I didn't correct it.
I haven't seen it since like the year it came out. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
I saw it in theaters when it released, and like once since. It was mostly shot in Alabama.
really?
Yeah, so the town of Spectre is actually still relatively intact, kind of outside of Wetumpka.
Okay.
So down around Montgomery.
Montgomery, Alabama.
Montgomery. Yeah, we were really
Is
mad.
that where they filmed Sweet Home Alabama?
No, it's not.
That was Vancouver.
I know.
No, close. I was actually really mad because I was in college at Auburn, and there are scenes in this story that take place in Auburn, and we're like, oh, so like they filmed all around here. So did we just not see them on campus? And they're like, they did the campus. You're like, this is not Auburn.
Oh yeah.
Like, you jerks, this is nothing like it. You were like 20 miles from here.
Come on.
So basically, he goes through all these stories, and as he goes through everything, he basically starts to find out, well, most of this actually happened. It's just like his dad is only adding like one step on top of the 10 steps that already took place. And it's like, my dad actually had an incredible life.
Yeah.
And I've always basically denied it because I refused to listen
Believe
or
it.
believe.
Yeah.
Like a jerk.
And so then he and his son reconcile. Right?
Yeah.
So there's no real, I mean, like you could almost say the son is
The bad
an
guy?
antagonist.
Yeah.
But he's really not a bad guy. It's just they just don't understand one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like it mostly just because there is a lot of whimsy in this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is a lot of fantastic things that happen that are tough to believe kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go back into this era, like his dad, was I don't know if it was volunteer to serve or was drafted into the Korean War, right? And back in those days, you had these people who were just hard as nails, who just did incredibly crazy things, and we only hear one story about it every once in a while. But to a modern perspective, you're like, this dude jumped out of a burning plane to save 20 of his buddies on the ground with a pistol. I was like, what?
What?
These kinds of things.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty great film. So I saw it in theaters at Auburn. We were mad about it. I enjoyed it, but we were mad about it. I've seen it once since. I haven't really gone back. It's one of those films where I'm always like,
I need to check it out.
I need to put this back on and watch it again because it's really interesting because it's both a very heartfelt and wholesome story surrounded by kind of almost fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually kind of on brand for what we're talking about today for Interstellar. Congratulations, you did a me.
I did do kind of a little bit of like the father progeny relationship maneuver here. You're welcome. It's going to cost us 7 years.
I knew it was going to cost us 7 years.
All right, who's next?
All right, Andrew.
That was not a meth. That was not a
terrible
Matthew
McConaughey.
The worst I think that's ever happened. I think wherever Matthew McConaughey is right now, he just went, oh, it's like someone stepped on my grave. And he started playing his bongos naked and said, all right, man, let's get back to this party. And it didn't faze him that much. But for one moment, he felt a chill.
Wasn't he like involved in some production here in Alabama?
Yeah, he was. He actually just got
recently
done filming something.
Yeah, like there's something going on here. I was like, I know I've seen him in local news for some
Yeah,
reason.
apparently he's a super genuine guy. Very nice.
Oh, yeah.
He drives himself around. He actually drives a Lincoln. Yeah. And he actually
supports those commercials.
Well, no, he actually has driven a Lincoln well before he actually got the
so they were like,
sponsorship.
hey, we're looking for someone to sponsor.
But
Yes.
it was also
He was like,
before he
"Dude, I
was in
love
a Lincoln
Lincolns."
lawyer, right?
I don't know about
I think
that.
he was really like a Lincoln
Yeah,
fan.
I think he just loves
And he did a
Lincolns.
Lincoln lawyer, and he was like, it's right there, guys. The sponsorship's just waiting.
Yeah.
All right, what's your movie, Andrew?
All right, so I chose the 2016 sci-fi film Arrival with Amy Adams.
Okay, all right.
So, linguistics professor Lewis Banks leads an elite team of investigators when gigantic spaceships touch down in 12 locations around the world. As nations teeter on the verge of global war, Banks and her crew must race against time to find a way to communicate with the extraterrestrial visitors.
Yeah.
So this is an incredibly tense film.
Oh, yeah.
That
This is
doesn't.
Denis Villeneuve?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Denis.
Yeah, it doesn't actually have any kind of like action in it at all.
No, yeah.
It is this very cerebral and kind of like detective a little noir-ish.
Well, it gets into the idea of like, if aliens actually came here and they were so wildly different from us that like
how would you communicate with them? How would you interact with them? Like they live on completely different rules than us.
Their sense of time is different. They're like like the way they perceive the world is different. Like everything. Yeah.
Well, and the big thing. The big takeaway here is a lot of popular media, whenever aliens show up, they're here for conquest. They're here to destroy us, whatever, or harvest our organs. Doesn't matter. Bad things.
Whatever, yeah.
But these aliens, whenever they show up, they're benevolent. They're very... They want to share information, but they can't share information without basically the use of Amy Adams' character, a linguistics professor, figuring out how to actually talk with them.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic journey throughout the whole movie because it's a really small cast and very tense in the sense of like it's kind of a thriller because you really don't know what's going to happen the whole time.
Is the world just going to end?
Well, the first time, I saw it, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for a large part of the movie of like, they are sinister.
Yeah.
like V or something here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they... I mean, it's just a fantastic movie. Denis Villeneuve did it, and
the visuals are great. Like, and just the whole exploration of that idea is phenomenal to me.
Yeah,
I think of any of the complaints I've seen about it, it's that people didn't understand what kind of movie it was before they went in.
Yeah, kind of going in. Yeah. It's the same thing of like whenever people went in to go see like Cloverfield for the first time.
Right.
Yeah. Where they don't know what you're getting into and then you're like, oh, this isn't the movie that I wanted.
Right.
And I can completely understand that with Arrival, but however, I loved it. It's a fantastic movie. Yeah. It's definitely one of those movies where like whenever you watch it, it's kind of like you got to be in the mood for it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's not just like a throw it on a Sunday afternoon and like chill and watch Arrival.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot
of
attention
to this
emotional moments that basically Amy Adams' character has to confront throughout the movie from her past and some of the other like team members and those kind of things that kind of pile on top of the overarching plot and story.
Right.
And it's just a phenomenal movie all the way across. If you love, I'll say sci-fi, but hard sci-fi particularly, this is definitely within your alley. We're doing a review on Interstellar, which is also another great hard sci-fi.
If you like Interstellar and you haven't seen Arrival, go watch Arrival. Like, what are you doing?
It's really, really good.
Listen to this first, and then
go watch Arrival. It's very good.
Yeah. All right, what about you?
My movie is tangentially kind of related to this movie. In a sense.
2001: Space Odyssey. Nope, that has a villain in it.
No. In the year 2000, a movie came out.
2001: Space Odyssey.
Called Castaway.
Oh,
with Tom Hanks.
That does have a villain. It's called The Sea.
The Sea.
No, harsh mistress.
I'm sorry. Wilson is the villain.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
That's the darkest take on this story that's ever existed.
He's holding Tom back.
So for those that don't know.
It was Wilson who sank the raft every time.
Oh, Wilson!
And then Wilson got off the island first.
He floated out. He's like, "I'll see you later, sucker."
I'll see you, sucker.
So, Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis, was about a FedEx executive undergoes a physical and emotional transformation after crash landing on a desert island. I didn't want to get too vivid in the description because if you haven't seen Castaway, there are some things that happen that I don't want to like.
It's a phenomenal film.
It's a really good movie.
It's a good film.
Yeah.
Like if you ever if for whatever reason you've ever thought that Tom Hanks was not a good actor,
just watch Castaway.
Just go watch Castaway.
Yeah. You can watch a lot of his stuff.
It is like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and he does an amazing job at it.
Yeah. But I just love how this movie examines the idea of being stranded and like that idea of like no one's coming to get me, like what do I do? You know, like I'm out in the middle and just seeing his evolution as a character and Tom Hanks as an actor of like how he portrays like what somebody would look like after a day of being stranded, a week,
a month,
year. You know, and then just the whole like it really gets into like what happens
to your psyche,
like
what happens, like even physically, and like the kind of things that you wouldn't really think of until like it's there and it's a reality,
right? And
you're like, oh no, this is a big problem.
That's the thing. That's like when you realize what's going on, you're like, oh no, like you got to figure this out. Stat.
Yeah, a phenomenal film. And
If you've ever seen the TV series Lost, it's nothing like that.
it is absolutely
Nothing like Lost at all. Yeah. Very, very poignant.
I'm proud of all of us. We all had tertiary connections to what we're talking about this episode.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We had a sci-fi.
We finally got one.
Relationship. Yeah.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, I guess.
Broken clock's right twice a day.
Okay, let's get into the plot summary for Interstellar. Earth's future has been riddled by disasters, famines, and droughts.
Hold on.
Okay.
We have to talk about our favorite corn dishes.
Oh my gosh, that's the most important part of this episode. Forget everything.
We made Ryan so angry.
We were trying to come up with an intro topic for this episode. We were talking about corn, and Andrew suggested, I think kiddingly, what about our favorite corn dishes? And I was starving when he suggested this. And I was like, I thought of 100 corn dishes in a split second. I was like seeing the code of the Matrix. I was like, corn, yes.
You went like full Bubba there. You're like, fried corn.
Fried
corn
over
soup.
Forrest Gump. Corn quiche, corn flan. All right, so we're gonna go around real quick and just everybody talk about your favorite corn dish. Andrew, go.
Mexican corn, baby.
Wow, that's mine.
Street corn?
So mine is
street corn.
Authentic Mexican street corn. So
It's got like some cheese on it.
Oh, yeah,
and-
it's cotija cheese.
Yeah.
Get it right.
my friend Marcella is from Mexico City, and we shared an office, and she would cook for us every now and then. We go hang out with her, and she made tacos campechanos and Mexican street corn, and like holy smokes, she did this. We went to the Spanish market. We
Yeah.
got the
The
mayonnaise with
authentic
lime in it,
ingredients. Yeah.
the right mayo.
tahini seasoning, the like all the stuff, and she like rolled it, shows us how to do it, and it's so simple. It's just you make the corn, you put the mayonnaise on it.
Just
You
so
put
simple.
the-
You just make corn.
yeah, well, you just bake
You
the
just
corn.
make corn.
You grow corn, you wait like a while, it gets bigger. Yeah. But man, eating that street corn,
Good street corn
Good
is
street corn is-
unbeatable.
oh, man.
unbeatable. And when you have bad street corn, it's very disappointing because when I order street corn and I get excited about street corn and you bring me some slop to the table, get out. So I'm not going to name the name of this restaurant,
Well-
but we went to one lately. It was a very hipster taco joint, and they had like street corn as like an appetizer. And I go, yeah, sure, whatever.
Oh.
It was not street corn.
Was it on the cob?
No.
No,
That's
okay, yeah.
the
See,
first
that's the thing.
failing.
It has to
It's
be on
gotta
the
be on the
cob.
cob.
It has to be on the cob.
gotta
Whenever
be on
you
the
get,
cob.
whenever you order street corn, they give you like the little pile of the kernels. You're like, what is
Yeah,
this?
my
it was
wife
that, and
is-
it had
my
like
wife is
all
missing
sorts
out.
of other stuff added in there, and I was like, go.
Corn on the cob is the only way to eat corn.
What's the number for the health inspector, please? Because this is not street corn. Steven, corn dish.
So I struggled with this one, right?
What?
Well, no.
How could you struggle?
How could you not? There are so many.
There are so many.
choices.
There are so many.
Like watching the film,
Corn
when
is
it's
very
like
good.
corn is your only crop. I was like, man, you have so many choices.
I could make that work. I could work with this.
We've done. Like civilizations have made this work.
Yeah.
So I had the debate right between corn on the grill, like just straight up, just sweet
Just
corn
like,
on the
yeah,
grill.
like roasted
Sweet corn
corn.
grill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
butter, salt, pepper.
Oh,
get
yeah,
in
no.
there, get that crunch.
Man, you do some Old Bay on that with some melted butter.
Well, you get it, and you get it where you can just kind of spin it in the butter.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you get a big whole
we're
stick
getting,
of butter.
We're getting real southern right now. But,
Yeah.
Y'all, I want some of that corn now.
no,
Daddy's
so-
got the corn sweats over
So
here.
the real dish here is cornbread.
Ooh,
See,
cornbread's good.
yeah,
Now,
No, good
southern
cornbread.
savory, not the sweet crap.
No, get that out of here.
Southern savory cornbread.
Yup.
You get the cast iron skillet.
Oh, yeah.
You lay down a layer
Get
of oil.
a nice little crispy on the edges.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
You
do
can
it where
sop
can
up some
flip-
beans with that.
Oh man, get the
Darn
good,
y'all,
the good
it's happening.
crisp where the whole main part of the cornbread is soft and fluffy.
Well,
and then you
want
get
it-
the
you don't
crunch
want
at
it-
the bottom.
You don't want it too thick either. You want
no,
it to
no.
be like about an inch or an inch and a
You
half
need
tall.
about an inch
Yeah.
and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because if
about
it's
the
too
right
thick,
amount.
like the middle's
It-
not
it's
as
too
done
mealy.
right.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
You got to be an even consistency. But then,
Yeah.
like, it's so not that the people in Interstellar get to experience this, but it's so perfect for like you got some chili, you just put the cornbread in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
You got,
You're taking me on a journey,
Right.
Steve.
Head over here.
I mean,
He still has to host the rest of the
you get,
episode.
like,
Can we pause and eat a lot of food real quick?
That's like I mean, you get like some like pinto beans and rice.
Oh.
Some cornbread in there.
No,
with
I'm
it.
not a big pinto bean fan.
Oh,
I like
get outta
black
here, Andy.
beans.
It don't matter the bean.
It
You
really
can sop
doesn't
up some
matter.
cornbread in there.
Anything where you've got that sauce that you need to collect,
Oh man.
or like
Like barbecue sauce, whatever.
oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Oh gosh. Now if you want to go real nuts with the savory, you slice up a little bit of jalapeno, and scatter that in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you have spicy cornbread. That's a whole nother ball game of good. Doesn't work with everything, but man,
I love cornbread.
This is the most southern conversation we've ever had. Got my corn. Soaping up beans with our cornbread. Anyways, all
right, well,
back to the plot summary. Earth's future has been riddled by disasters, famines, and droughts. However, they got a lot of corn. There's only one way to ensure mankind's survival: interstellar travel. A newly discovered wormhole in the far reaches of our solar system allows a team of astronauts to go where no man has gone before, a planet that may have the right environment to sustain human life.
Yep, that sounds like Interstellar.
Yeah, sure is Interstellar.
This movie was released on October 26, 2014, almost 10 years old.
Man, that's crazy that it doesn't feel that old.
No, it doesn't. I feel like this is like
well.
5 years old, but it's like a decade old almost, and I just got older.
Well, the reason why it holds up is because Christopher Nolan is practical.
Yes, and we'll get into that when we get into some trivia. He's very
practical.
Yeah. Directed by Christopher Nolan, obviously.
He's very not practical in his practical effects.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to like create a world, right? No, we're going to go visit one. Get the ship.
Call NASA.
It's like the Oppenheimer meme. It's like, wait, he didn't really blow up a nuclear bomb, right?
And Nolan's like, how far away from detonation do we need to be? Well, Chris, hold on. This was written by Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan, his brother.
Some nepotism here.
Yeah, music by Hans Zimmer, starring Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, John Lithgow, Michael Caine, Mackenzie Foy, Timothy Chalamet, and many more.
Yeah, this
What
cast
an
is
incredible cast.
Fantastic cast,
riddled
too.
with. This is just kind of what Nolan does at this point.
Right.
He just picks up the phone, calls the same 5 people, and we're like, "This is going to be great."
Yeah.
I mean,
then there's a lot of people
that's what like Spielberg does. That's what Scorsese does.
I mean, it is true. Yes.
He's definitely, like, I would say after Inception, and
He's very much
obviously The Dark
on the
Knight,
in crowd.
he's hit that moment of like people want to work with Christopher Nolan.
If I hand Robert Downey Jr. a script, he's like, "Well, yeah, I want to sign up for this."
Yeah, in red paper.
Black print on red paper.
Yeah.
Or was it red print on black?
No,
Either way, it was
red
hard to
paper,
read,
black
is
print.
what it
Black
sounded
print.
like. Yeah.
If you want to know what we're talking about, go listen to our Oppenheimer episode. It's very good.
Shameless
Barbenheimer episode.
The Barbenheimer episode. That's
Barbenheimer.
right. We combined them.
Ew.
The budget for this movie was $165 million.
That's a pretty cheap trip out of the solar system.
I mean,
Right.
Sure, yeah.
The domestic take was $188 million and $490 million international, with a $678 million worldwide
Good
total.
job, Christopher Nolan.
Not bad.
Christopher Nolan movies always do pretty good
Yeah.
internationally.
Which is honestly kind of impressive because this is the type of film where you really need to, one, understand the dialogue. Like, you need a good translation. And two, it's pretty long. This is almost a 2-hour, 50-minute
it's like
minute.
it's pretty long.
2:49, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, overall thoughts. What do we think about it?
I'll let Steven go first.
You really want me to
Okay.
go first on
Why?
this?
Because I know he's going to bring us down, and I'm going to bring us right back up.
Okay, so
lift
you don't
us
want to
up.
start. We start negative. We get in the dirt, and then we come up. All right, Steven, do your thing. Sure, just like go ahead. He's like, this is my favorite movie of all time.
You're gonna like release the pig to come wallow or something?
Do whatever you want, Steven.
Do whatever you want, Steven. No, yeah, what's up? What
Okay, so we're gonna preface this with I've never seen this film until I watched it for this review.
Okay. So did you avoid it on any reason, or just that you just never got around?
No,
to
it just
seeing
went right past me. I'm not like I've never watched a Nolan film, but like, man, I hate this. But I'm also not been, I think one of
biggest
our
Nolan
bonus
fan.
episodes, we had a patron on doing trivia, and it was mentioned like Nolan has like 5 of the top 50 on IMDb,
Yeah.
and we were all kind of like, that feels a little weighted,
Little high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm also not in the camp of like, Nolan's the greatest ever, or he's
Well,
the
I
most overrated.
definitely
It's
feel
just-
that a lot of
he just
cinema
is.
buffs do kind of look at Nolan. They're like, oh, well, Nolan is like, he
There's
does
definitely a
everything
push the
right.
glasses back bit
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And like, this is a very science-heavy film.
It is.
Yeah.
And we open it with ghosts.
I mean,
And
They're not really.
basically,
they're
as
not real
soon as
ghosts.
that sequence started, I was like, man, I know where this movie's going to go.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And part of that, I think, is just the amount of time between its release and now.
yeah, I mean, like
okay.
you,
There's been
you've,
more
you've had
time
like
for
tertiary
stuff to play off
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, first 25 minutes, I was like, well, I know where this is headed. and it felt kind of bad in that sense. Like, it kind of, I ruined my own experience with the film. And then as the film
like a personal
went,
problem.
I'm just too smart for the rest of the world.
It's not even that. It's literally just like, if I had seen this in theaters, I probably would have come out and be like, whoa, mind blown, right? But it's like, my wife never saw The Matrix. So, well, we have to watch that. And she watched, it's okay. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But of course, for me at the time, seeing it in theaters,
Copper top, they're batteries.
Yeah, like,
well, it's because like the big thing is like a lot of like Matrix particularly created tropes.
Like for her, bullet time is just like, oh, they're doing this again. It's like, no, you don't understand.
This is when they did it.
And it was mind blowing.
But what has played off Interstellar a lot?
I don't know. Like offhand, I don't really know.
General popular media,
but
I think, would probably pick up
feel like a lot of
elements.
And maybe some of the science discussion around the film has just kind of filtered just through internet browsing or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, I don't hate the film by any means. I think the acting is great. It's a Nolan film. The cinematography is great. I do think the plot's a little weak.
Okay.
I have complaints. We're gonna get in there.
Sure. We'll get that after the spoiler wall.
We get off the spoiler wall. The music's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a little long, but it mostly had, like, for the most part, like, there was a point midway into this film, maybe 2/3 the way in, where I was like, boy, they've really got me. And then I had to, like, pause it for something. I was like, there's 49 minutes left of this film. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is like I think the film is actually paced quite well.
It is honestly. It flows
it is
along
a
pretty
long
smoothly.
movie. However, it does a really good job at keeping you engaged in the minutia of like kind of like the mechanics of how they're getting through certain obstacles.
Just the things that happen, and like it does a good job of, it doesn't like stop for them to like stare at the screen and just like info dump. Like just the discussions amongst the characters gives you enough.
There is a lot of
enough context to keep. Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of good show don't tell.
Yeah.
There's not just like overt exposition, except for like maybe one or two times.
But it's always done.
It's always done in a way that is.
It doesn't feel like they're talking to the audience.
Yes.
No.
It feels like they're
doesn't.
just catching him up on like genuinely what you would be getting caught up on.
Well, I mean, these people, like, he's a engineer, test pilot, like he's fairly well technically adept, right?
Yeah.
But like, these are theoretical physicists who have probably spent far too long on their PhDs, right? Like they're several magnitudes above, like, on math and whatnot. Like, it's kind of expected.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and he's just a pilot at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, again, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It wasn't like the biggest whoa, kind of thing. And I mean, I have some issues with. There's a bit of an idiot ball problem in here in the middle of this film.
I'm curious about what idiot ball that is, but
It'll come up. Don't worry. We'll
Yeah.
get into it. We'll get into the weeds.
Okay.
So one of y'all pick it up.
Andrew, what do you think about this movie?
I love this movie.
Tell me why.
Yeah.
Speak on that.
Yep.
So, one, I definitely saw this in theaters day one, IMAX, and then I think we went and saw it again the same weekend.
And this is definitely a Nolan film, I think, where the bigger the screen, the better.
Yes.
I don't like something like Oppenheimer. I don't necessarily know if that's true.
No,
There's
that's
There's
definitely
certain
true.
sines in Oppenheimer where it probably,
but it's such
like,
a small percentage.
there's
of the
a lot
film.
of this
There's
movie
a lot
that-
of this
yeah.
film where I want to
Yes.
see, an event horizon as big as it can be, right?
Right,
Kind of thing.
But so, one, I think the acting's phenomenal. The overarching story is really, really good. There are some issues that I do have with plot at the end of the film.
Same.
However, it's
Yeah.
not enough that really it bothers me to knock it anywhere down. Like, this is probably definitely within my top 10 just favorite films.
I mean, watching this is very 2001.
It is.
Which I was like,
Oh, there's a lot of
like watching it, I was like,
inspiration.
I
Yeah.
know why Andrew loves this.
Yeah, I mean,
I can
yeah.
see why.
There's a lot of Arthur C. Clarke kind of concepts that get thrown into this. He's one of my
yeah.
favorite authors.
Yeah.
And I think Hans Zimmer knocks it out of the park with this soundtrack.
This is one of my favorite scores from Hans.
Yes.
Maybe my favorite. I don't know.
I mean,
depending
it's
on the day. You
like
know?
top 3, if not 1. Like, I think it's
so
phenomenal.
good.
It's up there.
It's so
Yeah.
good. And it's so different than what Christopher Nolan other films are kind of about, because there's really no, like, I'll say action.
There's a little bit.
There's some, but yeah, it's not like
it's not like an action movie.
No.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so interesting because like it is relatively science heavy, but it's kind of science adjacent to where they don't bog you down with like really hard line details.
Well, all the equations are on the chalkboard, but we don't go line by line through the equations.
Yeah.
Like it's still enough of, I'll say, an arcade experience to where you can experience it without having like deep understanding knowledge of how space works
Well,
and how
you're in
time dilation
McConaughey's
works.
seat, right? You're the pilot at this point. You're not going to get up there and run with these people on math.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me with this film is it is a deeply emotional connection with the characters that you get to go along on Matthew McConaughey's journey and Anne Hathaway's and some of the other crew members, like their journey through this whole ordeal. And there are definitely moments in this film where like I cry every time I see it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Ryan?
Same for me. I love this movie. I mean, I'm a Christopher Nolan fan, but I'm not one of those people that's like,
He pushed his glasses up when he said it, people. I saw it.
oh, they're always up. Why? No. To me, there's a difference between being a fan of someone and being like just up somebody's butt about how like a stan. Like I'm not like Christopher Nolan's done no wrong. I just really like a lot of his movies
because
he makes good movies.
British, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, sure. But he does make just good movies.
He does, yes.
And I think, too, for me, like, he's one of the few directors that are, like, making blockbusters, that are making, like, hard sci-fi, or, like, movies that have, like, really interesting and, like, risky premises sometimes.
He's simultaneously critically acclaimed and makes money every time he goes out. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and he also goes into the exact genre that I genuinely enjoy, which is hard sci-fi.
Right.
Like that's kind of like where, because like I haven't seen Tenet, but it's definitely one of those things where Interstellar, like the second I saw the trailers for this movie, I was like, that looks like a movie I want to see. And then I don't
even remember the trailer for this film.
Honestly, I can't remember either, but I
must
remember
have been
walking
under a rock or something. I don't know, 2014.
Yeah.
Probably was.
I mean, I was like all about Interstellar when I saw the trailer. But anyways, saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
Loved it. I like the emotional side of it for me, like the relationship with Matthew McConaughey's character
and his daughter
Coop and Murph.
Yeah.
I love Matthew McConaughey in this movie. Like, I'm a big Matthew McConaughey fan. Like, I think
this one really shows off a lot of his acting chops.
Oh yeah, well, like he had other movies before this where he had kind of the breakout acting, where he had kind of switched from being the guy from like Sahara, and
Well, this was
don't
But I'm saying like
Sahara.
People pigeonholed Matthew McConaughey. Ew. They pigeonholed him for a long time as just like this like hippie dude,
kind of a dumb jock frat.
Because he had like a run of like rom-coms. He had a run of like kind of action comedies and stuff.
Well,
he had U571. Thank you very much.
He had like
Oh my
A
gosh,
Time to Kill.
He is in that. He's the main character.
I saw that in theaters.
Cool.
I know, that's how I feel too.
Put that in your diary. What I'm getting at is that there was a hot minute where Hollywood had kind of like made Matthew McConaughey this like he's just this hunky guy that can be in like this, and like he wasn't getting roles for stuff, and then like he did Mud, and then I think Christopher Nolan saw him in Mud and was like, holy cow, this guy can act. So
and that was around True Detective.
Right, True Detective season 1. So like for this movie, I think one of the trivia things is Nolan wanted somebody who could play like an everyman, but who could
definitely McConaughey,
but who could also convey the emotion needed to experience these moments, like these scenes, like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we can't just have anybody, because you could get like a Daniel Day-Lewis who's like a really good actor, but can he be like an everyman? Like maybe he could. He can act like anything. The guy's incredible. But like when I think of Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't usually think of like the everyman.
McConaughey seems very relatable.
Right, yeah. So it was like he struck that perfect balance there, and like everybody in this movie, like Jessica Chastain's great, John Lithgow's really good in it, like
Anne Hathaway.
It's hilarious.
Everybody's
to see
great.
John Lithgow and be like, oh, I know you.
yeah. You do the Leo meme.
Yeah.
Like, he's from Third Rock from the Sun.
This is the dude with the big head in Third Rock.
Yeah, but I agree that past the spoiler wall, we'll get into some plot stuff. But it's towards the end of the movie where I have any kind of issues. But for me, the pure like just combination of the visuals, the music, the acting, the storyline of like the journey they're taking you on, just like completely floored me in theaters. And like when I got it on 4K Blu-ray, it's the version that has the IMAX scenes are like full frame and the dialogue. And like every time they go through any of the special effects scene, it just goes full. You're like, whoa! But see, I'm also a huge fan of 2001.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like there's a lot of
there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
This is definitely a movie for me. As a Nolan fan and a 2001 fan, this was just like, and a Matthew McConaughey fan.
Yeah. The perfect storm.
Yeah, like I'm not going to walk out of this movie not enjoying it.
See, the thing is, I'm a huge Matthew McConaughey fan.
Yeah. From Sahara.
Specifically, only from Sahara.
No, from basically everything he's been in.
No, he's a fantastic
I can't think of a movie where I've been like, ugh, he's...
No, even in Contact, he's really good.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's another movie I want to review at some point.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey.
Just call it a sci-fi podcast. Let's go.
Let's do it.
I mean...
it half is, anyways.
Basically are. But yeah, I mean, like, it's good. It just has issues simultaneously.
It's good, but it has issues.
I'll be curious to hear what your issues are because I love this movie. All right, so would you recommend it?
So
let's start with Steven. Would you recommend it?
I mean, sure.
To who? Who would you recommend it to?
So I mean, the caveats are going to be, one, it's very long. Mm-hmm. Two, it's very it's not just a very science-driven film. It's a very character-driven film, right? Like, we're not going to get out and shoot lasers at each other. There's not that kind of action in this.
Yeah.
So like, you got to know what you're getting in for. It is a very hard sci-fi film, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, and with the hard sci-fi does come a little level of complexity, particularly with how time dilation works, that you will need to be able to understand to follow where a lot of the film.
Lightyear, you can watch this.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have
Lightyear
friends
might
that
be
saw
part
it
of it.
with me in theater that were clueless.
Yeah, but Lightyear hadn't come out yet.
Oh, okay. That was it. That was the problem.
That's the key to unlock.
Dang it, Christopher. Just hold on to your movie.
That's clearly the problem here.
I hope that's actually not how I figured out some of this is Lightyear. Ugh.
It probably is.
Making me feel worse now.
Because that was a play on a lot of the stuff that happened.
It was, yes. It makes me feel a lot worse.
Yeah.
So
would you recommend this movie, Andrew?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that if you're not someone like Steven, that can be like, oh, I watched the first 5 mints and I already know what happens at the end.
Yeah. The corn kills everyone.
I think that this is a very good
make enough bread.
If hard sci-fi and those kind of films are really your wheelhouse and you haven't seen this for whatever reason, it is a paradigm shifting film.
So let's unpack what a hard sci-fi is versus soft sci-fi.
So soft sci-fi is generally something like Star Wars, Star Trek, generally more
far
I would say
future.
some Star Trek gets into hard sci-fi.
No, not at all.
Well, the difference to me has always been if I was talking to a normal person, like who's not really into sci-fi and has like a life, I would be like, Star Wars is soft sci-fi because
Star Wars is fantasy.
But like you don't know how the Millennium Falcon runs on fuel. You don't get into that. You don't need that.
Understand that.
Star Trek, you have to have a little bit of knowledge of how dilithium crystals work to understand the problems that arise when they have stuff. So to me, that's kind of a...
The problem with Star Trek is they just kind of throw technobabble at the screen and live with it. I mean, they describe, like, what was it? The amount of energy to pierce the shield is like the amount of energy you expend walking up a flight of steps. Okay.
Well, to me, some of it's like soft sci-fi, the science is not the point. The science fiction is just the set dressing.
That is where Star Trek gets into real sci-fi, is they touch on not just the science, but like the cultural effects, the impacts of the emotional human results of the science.
Right. But like what I was saying is
Star Wars doesn't touch on that.
Star Wars is like science fiction is the set dressing.
Yes.
Star Trek science fiction is like the point. It's like the plot. It's
Correct.
like what's moving things forward.
Well, and so like a true hard sci-fi is going to be closer to something like Dune or The Martian or 2001: Space Odyssey or whatever. Because
I don't know if I put Dune in those. lists,
no.
But
now we're just arguing about what hard sci-fi.
Well, no. So the hard sci-fi is basically it is based in some level of reality to where everything that exists in the universe has a specific purpose and it is explained why it exists.
For most hard sci-fi, you are taking whatever the current time period is, so like current time, and you're only going one or two steps out. For when you get into like a Star Trek, you go way out on that branch, right?
Yeah, but like Dune's way out on that branch.
That's why I'm
that's the
saying
thing, though.
Dune doesn't count as much.
Frank Herbert was almost the grandfather of hard sci-fi. Fight me.
But like in this movie, they don't explain every single thing.
No, they don't.
No.
But the main plot point is time dilation, and they very specifically tell you how it works.
Right.
And
Well,
go
also,
over
like, again, everything that happens is only a step or two beyond where we are.
Yeah,
essentially.
where we are.
It's
Right.
not a big reach, and most of it can be tracked back to real theories, real science.
Yes.
So to simplify it, hard sci-fi is very realistic. Soft sci-fi is very like
fantasy.
It's pushing fantasy.
Yeah, like,
It's
it doesn't
borderline-
matter, like-
the technology is borderline magic.
Yes.
right.
But back to what I was saying.
Yes.
So
Tangent over.
All right.
So
that was
unless you're someone like Steven who just figures out movies within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. Because he
If-
looks it up online.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, totally
He cheats.
did.
So I think it is if this is in your wheelhouse, it is a paradigm shifting film.
Yeah.
So my father, whenever we watched it, he had never seen it before, and we watched it over here on a movie night like last year.
Yeah.
And I like him walking out. He wanted to go sit back down and watch it again.
Oh, wow.
Like, literally right after we finished it.
I can see this being like absolutely your dad's like wheelhouse.
And look, I mean, it's part, we're part of the same family here. Like we grew up on this, or I grew up on the stuff that he loved, and he loved
Right.
hard sci-fi, Arthur C. Clarke, that kind of stuff. So this is right in his wheelhouse, and he just absolutely loved it. So if you like that kind of stuff and you want a little bit more meat to your bone than something like Star Wars, where it's just
Right.
kind of like stuff happens, the Force exists, there's magic.
There's lasers and
Laser
pew-pews.
swords.
Yeah,
Laser
that kind of
swords.
stuff. If you want something
Yeah.
a little bit harder than that, then this is your bag.
Yeah, I think so. And like my friend Charles, he loves this movie. And to my knowledge, I don't think he's a big fan of like 2001 or like other stuff like that.
Well, in 2001, like it's a fantastic film,
Yeah.
but it is inherently boring.
Yes.
it
If
is
you're-
a slow.
Yeah.
If you're a big
build.
fan of, say, like The Expanse,
Yes.
then Interstellar is going to be in your
Or if you're a
wheelhouse.
fan of Interstellar and you haven't read The Expanse,
Right.
you need to go read The Expanse.
I need to read The Expanse. I haven't.
You do, in fact,
Oh, it's
yes.
so
you
good.
Need to
I
read
really
The
do.
Expanse.
Yeah.
I've been on like a 6-month wait list at the library. I'm about to just buy the books. I'm
I'll
just-
just gift them to you.
I'll just loan you. We have.
well, specifically the audiobook, so I can listen to it on the way
I
back
will
and
gift
forth.
them to you. I'll give you my my whole account.
Do it now, on air. Give me your password. I'll hold you to it.
Mother's
you want my
maiden
credit
name
card
and your
too?
social. Yes.
And go make me some street corn while we're at it. Do whatever. Okay, so I would guess that means you would rewatch it, Andrew.
No, I would never rewatch this film ever
Hates it.
again.
I would
can't
rewatch it a lot.
stand it.
What a
So-
beast.
I obviously would rewatch it. Steven, let's talk to you. Would you rewatch this movie?
Yeah.
So in what context do you think, though?
Well, I think I just probably a little bit more time.
Clockwork
between-
Orange style.
It's just eyes held up. No, but like, so it's not like you're going to go out and watch it like next weekend. It's like you're
No,
going to wait a
it
few
didn't have a
years.
thing.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those films I think that is heavy enough, right? It hits
Yeah.
hard enough on the emotional side.
You got to be in the mood.
that you
Yeah.
got you have to get up and walk around a little bit when it's done.
You
right?
do, yeah.
And kind of collect yourself. Like it's not something where it's like next week we got a party, friends are let's just put this on.
on
It's not that kind
Interstellar.
of film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hans Zimmer scored.
check out my new surround sound. Brrr.
I do put this in when I'm showing off the surround sound, by the way. Yeah.
What if I told you you could go to a place where time dilation is real,
Oh, no.
where in 1 hour
You can watch a whole film?
You can you can ingest an entire film.
Can
That's
you do
right.
that anyways?
Not in an hour. Could you watch Interstellar in an hour? Absolutely not.
I don't know if I
You rent it on YouTube and you put the playback speed at like
Speed.
1.5.
Please don't do that. Anyways, spoilersintendedpodcast.com. You can go and watch or listen to all of our previous episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can watch them too. You can just watch the little tab.
You can watch the little bar move across. Yeah.
It will feel like time is moving so slowly.
Has it been 7 years?
This little
No,
maneuver's
just an
gonna
hour.
cost us 7 years. But we also have links there to things like our Discord, our Patreon, and our socials.
Yes, like on our Discord where you can like see all sorts of. You can also watch conversations happen between
real time.
In real time between all sorts of people that get in there. Again, our Discord is free. anybody that likes our podcast, come on in, have a discussion. We talk about the episodes. We talk about what we've been cooking. We talk about our pets.
Other video games we're playing.
Video games
what
we
are
play.
Listening to right now. All kinds of stuff.
We're just hanging out in there. It's a good time.
Well, we also have social media. We only have 2 accounts. We have Facebook and Instagram. Every week we try and post what we're going to watch for this coming week, so you can go ahead
and where to watch it.
And where to watch it and kind of get along with that. And
Follow us.
Just follow us. It'd be really great.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And
I
we're
love
back.
that soundtrack.
Great
We're past the
song.
spoiler wall.
It's so good.
This
That's a
little
really good
maneuver
song.
is going to cost us about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So that means we're past the spoiler wall, which means if you have not seen this movie and you do not want to be spoiled, turn back now. This is your last chance because we're going to get into...
Free us or die.
What?
The Star Wars.
Okay, I was trying to think, when in this movie does somebody...
I'm so confused.
I don't remember that
That's
happening at all.
Return of the Jedi.
Okay, I was like, all right. Let's crack into some trivia here.
All right.
So, earlier we were talking about, hard sci-fi and, things like that.
Christopher Nolan went to the Andromeda Galaxy and found a black hole.
He did. No, he worked really closely
Beyond
with
Alpha Centauri.
Dr. Kip Thorne on all sorts of stuff about not only black holes and time dilation and all that kind of stuff. Jonathan Nolan too, when they were like writing the script and go back and forth. And early in pre-production, Dr. Kip Thorne laid down 2 guidelines to strictly follow. Nothing would violate established physical laws, and that all the wild speculations that would spring from the science, but basically anything we're speculating on springs from science and not from the creative mind of a screenwriter.
Fantastical.
Yeah, so it's not like they're just coming up with what if this. It's there has to be at least a theory or some kind of like.
So again, we're in the hard side definition of reality, and then go take it one step.
One
further.
extra step just to make a story out of it.
Yeah.
Well, you want to push what science is doing and see what the future could hold, right?
Well, and I know that the model that they made the black hole look like was essentially the model like for science to like move forward, and like this is what they base what black holes look like now.
So like to that point, here's another piece of trivia. So to create the wormhole and black hole, Dr. Kip Thorne collaborated with visual effects supervisor Paul J. Franklin and his team at Double Negative. So the Thorne provided basically pages and pages of deeply sourced theoretical equations to the team, which then created a new CGI software program based on the equations to create accurate computer simulations of basically the phenomena, right? And some individual frames took up to 100 hours to render, and ultimately the whole CGI program reached to 800 terabytes of data.
Good Lord.
So the resulting visual effects provided Thorne with new insight into the effects of gravitational lensing and accretion disks surrounding black holes, and led him to writing 2 scientific papers, one for the astrophysics community and one for the computer graphics community.
Yeah, which is phenomenal.
Which is wild that this one movie, like they got together and tried to make the most realistic black hole ever, and like both the scientific and CGI community were like, thanks for that.
benefited from it.
We appreciate it.
Well, he also wrote a book, right, about all the science that it was involved in it.
Yeah, there was a ton of trivia about him. I left a lot of it out because I was like, it's going to be a Dr. Kip Thorne podcast.
Documentary.
Yeah. One thing I did find interesting here was that Steven Spielberg was originally attached to direct this movie back in 2006.
Ugh.
Yeah, and so he hired Jonathan Nolan to write the screenplay. So instead, he chose other projects, and in 2012, after
Probably
his
did not make as much money.
Probably not. I'm trying to think what Spielberg would have left to
Ready Player One, maybe.
like 06.
Oh, no, in 06.
That was not that long ago, yeah.
Yeah, Ready Player One was pretty recent.
2017.
I don't know.
Yeah, because we all went to go see it together.
Yeah,
we all
so
saw that.
2017, 2018, I don't know.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
It doesn't matter. It
What's
wasn't a
funny
good movie.
is you brought up Spielberg, and I was like, man, I feel like I read this trivia, but I didn't. It was actually about Big Fish from earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Spielberg was also tapped coming off of Minority
Big
Report.
Fish.
I would not want to see Interstellar with
Me neither.
Spielberg.
It would
running
probably be like his version of AI, where he took over after Kubrick, where it's like it's fine, but it's like not quite. But anyways, so it was originally, I think, gonna be a Spielberg movie, but then when it didn't, Jonathan Nolan, who had written it, turned to his brother Christopher and was like, would you want to do this?
And Christopher Nolan's like, this is exactly what I wanted to do for my entire life.
Right? Yeah, it's perfect.
All I've ever wanted, best birthday
He's
ever.
like, I've got so many ideas. We're gonna make completely new graphical models for black holes for the whole science community.
So speaking of that graphical model in the wormhole, it was placed near Saturn as a reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yep.
Because Kubrick originally planned for part of the movie to take place at Saturn, which was also a storyline in the book, the Arthur C. Clarke novel. But unfortunately, as visual effects technology was not able to make Saturn's rings at the time, he changed it to Jupiter for 2001: A Space Odyssey. So they put it near Saturn as like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to like,
We've come far enough now to
inspiration.
accurately represent
Yeah.
Saturn on screen.
All right, let's get into some spectacle. We've talked about the black hole and the CGI and stuff. So what did you guys think about the spectacle?
Steven.
Oh, it's really well done. I think a lot of what makes it really well done is not the CGI. And the CGI, like, honestly, if you had come at me and been like, this is what a black hole looks like, I'd be like, all right, yeah, sure. I can't dispute this, like, you come at it with all this, well, we did all this science and everything else. Like, it's great. I'm glad it benefited. But, I mean, it could have probably looked like several other things, and I would have still bought it.
Yeah.
I think it's the interiors of the space station, the spaceship, the farmhouse. Like, all these things are so tactile.
The lander that they have.
Oh, the Ranger? Mm-hmm. Well, the Ranger and the Lander, because they're two separate ships, are both great. I love, like, TARS.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so TARS was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like that, one, the design initially looked dumb as all get out to me.
But once you see it in motion.
Once they get it out and move, and like what they do with it throughout the film.
Yeah.
This is a really cool concept and design. And it's not, the typical future robot that you get.
Whenever you think of that, you think of like Lost in Space or something.
A bit,
Danger Will Robinson.
Yeah, with the wacky wavy
kind of like arms and like they have like bipedal legs
typically
and stuff.
it's a very humanoid shape, right?
It is, yeah.
Right.
And it's like, well, there's so much, especially, again, in our current era of robotics right now, like there's so much more that you can do. Because, like, let's be honest, is the human shape decent for locomotion? Sure. But, like, if we could cheat, why are we not putting some extra legs on this? Why don't we have
let's put 10 legs on this bad boy.
Cantilevered arms or like why are these things not?
Or whenever you can just turn your arms into pinwheels and just run.
Just run. Your whole body's just like.
What if my version of running is rolling?
Yeah,
right?
you're
like a permanent cartwheel.
Mm-hmm.
So one little piece of trivia about the spectacle and the special effects, since you're talking about things feel tactile and stuff, is like Inception and the last two Dark Knight movies, Christopher Nolan was obviously obsessed with focusing on as many real environments as possible. So they have spatial interiors, and they built closed sets and shot it basically like a documentary where the actors were like really there. Nolan also had the visual effects created in advance, so all the CGI was done before they even started shooting.
Oh, that's so good. So they can actually play off of it.
He projected it, like on each set,
instead of it just being a green screen.
This was the volume
Imagine
before the
black
volume.
hole. Yeah,
pretty
much,
and so in like the space craft set, like they projected it onto screen so that Matthew McConaughey and they can look out and see what's going to be
the space
like
station, through the windows.
Disney, take note.
They did.
To me, that they did
learned
in the wrong way.
Lessons,
all the wrong lessons.
But to me,
but some.
That is also, I think, another reason that I like Christopher Nolan so much, and I have such a nerd appreciation for him as someone who does video creation professionally. Like, I love it when someone doesn't take the cheap route and do like just CG this, put them on a green screen here, it's fine. Which is, I think, another reason why I dislike the prequels a lot is just because the execution of them was just like green screen this, green screen that, it's fine.
So Christopher Nolan is very similar to Hayao Miyazaki, who really takes the time
hone in on the details.
Yeah, really like there's so much detail in the background and like all this kind of stuff where he doesn't take shortcuts, and he hasn't done that for decades that he's made films. And Christopher Nolan is very similar to that, where he is, if he can make it practically, he will do it practically, regardless of cost.
Well, and to be fair, to like, step back a little bit, he can do that because he brings in so much money and his name has a lot of clout.
He's built the brand of himself.
And so like the average director coming up today,
you can't do that.
Just be like, I want $180 million and I'm going to do all practical. And they're like,
the
get out of
studio
here,
executives come down to visit and he just brushes them off. Yeah, you're not going
Right.
to do that on your directorial debut. It's just not going to happen.
But I feel like Nolan and Denis Villeneuve have like very similar aesthetic styles on some levels, where they do like the tactile, real sets, the real cockpits, the real, they're not just somebody sitting on a green screen, or like the Hobbit movies where Ian McKellen's losing his mind on this green screen. Like, what am I doing? There's also a clip of somebody riding like it was Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, where she's just on this big green dragon head on a green set, flopping around, and has no context of what she's looking around at, and she's getting all mad because it's like,
I was thinking of like Ewan McGregor from the prequels.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just a giant room full of green squares, and he's on, I think it's the lizard from the second movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, giddy up. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, so Robert Downey Jr. has commented about working on Marvel films before, where people are like, "Oh, do you enjoy working on films?" He's like, "I just show up. I get into a rubber suit and I say some lines that I don't have any idea what they mean, and that's it." Because he's not acting against anything. He's just like.
Well, I feel like in some of the movies, like especially Iron Man 3, he probably got more one-on-one with like Don Cheadle and stuff. But like to the point of like, he's not playing off of anybody in a lot of like in-game. He was probably in very few of those scenes actually physically in the same room with a lot of the actors.
Yeah. Well, and I know he's complaining about a lot of like the in-helmet shots because it's literally him with just his head, and all he has to do is say his lines and kind of look left to right or right to left.
And then they just animate everything else around it.
What am I supposed to do for this?
Yeah. It's to me it makes a huge difference, and I didn't realize that before I started producing this episode, that like he had done all the CG beforehand so that he could project it for the actors to see.
It
but
makes
I was like,
a lot of sense.
That's huge,
especially for certain sequences like the spinning sequence.
Oh yeah,
right? Where you really need, like, if McConaughey is just kind of looking upwards at nothing.
Yeah,
I don't know if you get as good a performance from him as you can get where he can actually see the object. You know what I mean?
And that whole specific scene, which I was actually about to bring up, it's definitely one of those where like it's kind of like not the emotional climax of the film, but it is the climax of the film action wise.
Right.
And you have this really long sequence of Matt Damon's character essentially stealing the ship and trying to dock with it and not listening to any of the warnings or whatever. Right. And, then obviously blowing himself up and causing catastrophic damage to the big space.
I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Endeavor.
Yeah. And then you have this whole sequence of Matthew McConaughey's character just trying to dock with it. Right. And obviously succeeding because he's very good at what he does. Yeah. And it's definitely one of those where, like, if they didn't have any kind of visual reference to act off of, it would fall so much more flat.
I don't think you get as good. I don't think you get, like, they're good actors. I don't think you get as good a performance. Yeah. And we may be talking about a 5 or 10% difference, but it's that extra step that pushes it, above and beyond. Right? Yes. Like that's what's necessary, I think.
The other thing is too, with the way that they illuminated and shot created all of the CGI exterior shots of the space, or like in space of the actual ships and everything is so good. It feels real. If you're familiar with any kind of like actual footage of space shuttles and the space station outside, where you can see, basically a planet in the background and then just the sun and whatever, you have these kind of, it's just a very specific feel. I don't know how to describe it, where there's really not a lot of like contrast. And they do such a good job at replicating this. It makes it feel so tactile that it does make it look like they actually just did this in space. Well, we know that they didn't.
It's one of those movies where, to me, like, if you're not just like really analyzing it, you can't catch a lot of the CG because it looks realistic. It's not like glaringly obvious that like, oh, that's CG. Look at that. Like, there's a hard edge around this green screen. The key's not good. You know what I mean? Like, there's no moment where it's like hitting you over the head that this is a special effect. It just looks like the film looks. Yep. And I think a lot of the ship shots were practical ships on top of
like scale models
and stuff. So that probably lends a lot to the look of them being like more realistic.
Well, they probably looked at all the footage of how they faked the moon landing and then replicated
Let's
it in
perpetuate
What
that.
a reference, please.
I'm just kidding. I think we definitely landed on the moon.
That scene too, like when the teacher's like talking about how like, well, I believe it was a hoax that bankrupted the Soviet. I was like,
It's a great
it's
job,
made me
great piece of propaganda.
angry.
Yeah, I do. What a perfect example of government in action. The world could be ending, but let's make sure that we don't
perpetuate
enforce what we're teaching, so that children don't look up; they need to look down. Don't dream. Don't hope.
Yeah.
Don't hope.
What's wrong with you people?
All right, well, let's move into performance. I sound like we've covered spectacle. So speaking of performance, talking about looking down in the dirt, that one line and that scene on the front porch with Matthew McConaughey and John Lithgow, where he's like, you know, we used to look up to the sky, now we're just staring at the dirt, and like, you know, like go. That's not the exact quote.
Yeah.
But like that line was like, oh, that's a good line, like whatever he said, and then there's just a bunch of lines from him. There's actually a lot of, to me, in the performance through McConaughey, a lot of subtle humor that comes from him in a lot of scenes.
He's very dry.
Yeah,
he is. But
it's very
Murph,
wry.
he comes back from the teacher conference. How'd it go? I got you suspended. You know, it's just like, it's the way he delivers it though. He just like, he has that pause before he says it that he just says it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I think that's a really good kind of segue into him and Murph's
like the father-daughter dynamic.
Yeah, like they're kind of dynamic in relationship, because they have, it's very protective but also very realistic in the sense of he is very real with her.
Right.
And he has no problem not sugarcoating anything.
Right. Except for later in the movie when he says, I couldn't tell her the world was ending.
Well, yeah,
No, but see that was actually the line I was going to bring up, because that's another really good line. It's like when you see when you have kids, you know, what you learn is you have to make them feel safe. You can't tell them, well, I'm going to go out and save the world. Well, wait, why are you leaving to save the world? What's going to happen? You know?
To the world. You're leaving me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, like, I mean, Anne Hathaway does good in this movie, but I've seen her do better in other stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think she gets as much to work with.
She doesn't really.
McConaughey is emphatically the main character.
And I would say Jessica Chastain as older Murph does a really good job.
She does
too.
a fantastic job.
She's really good at emoting, and like just like the journey that she goes on is just incredible.
Damon as the coward.
Oh, I thought,
man,
it's fantastic. Like, so I had no idea he was in the movie, and then like when we get to that point in the theater, I was like, "That's Matt Damon."
I know
he's in the movie.
Damon. That's Matt Damon. I remember like it had been like quite a while since I saw it in theater, like a couple times I want to say when it was out, and then I think I waited a while before I watched it again, like when it came home, and like I had forgotten that Matt Damon was in the movie. And then when he pops up, I was like, oh, this guy. No, don't trust him.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah. And then like immediately it made me like mad. And then like I watched The Martian, you know, after that. And I was like,
don't rescue that dirtbag.
Don't rescue
Matt
this
Damon.
potato farming dirtbag. Yeah,
he has such a good little mini arc though. Whenever he reveals kind of, you know, he's like, I knew that, you know, if I said that if it was good, like the planet was fine, someone would come to me.
Right.
And it's just like, man.
It's that idea that humanity will sabotage ourselves because we're selfish.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, we are the worst. Oh my gosh. I do want to give a shout out to Timothée Chalamet too, as young Tom. Yeah, because like initially when I saw him, I was like, "Oh yeah, Timothée Chalamet's in this."
I had that moment too. I was like, "Oh, is that Timothée Chalamet? Is it young Timothée Chalamet?
The Dune Child is in this. I forgot.
Get back to Arrakis, kid. What are you doing here?"
But he does a really good job of like being that like crappy older brother, by like, giving her like, you know, grief all the time, but then also like, I don't know, just watching, and also casting Casey Affleck as the older version of him was, at first I was like, Casey Affleck and Timothée Chalamet, I don't know, but like when the video logs happen and it switches to Casey Affleck, it's like, oh yeah, now that works.
It's just Timothy after he gains some weight and grows a beard.
It's like the tone changes.
And works on the cornfields.
Yep, out in the dirt.
I thought Michael Caine did a fantastic job.
Michael Caine.
At being, he's basically the closest thing to this movie's villain. Just because he blatantly lies to get them to go.
But it's still like if he didn't perpetuate the lie, then the preparation wouldn't have
happened. Yeah,
so it's really hard to say it outright. Like he just knows, hey, like the only way this succeeds is if we get a very specific piece of information that's basically impossible for us to get.
Right.
I think actually, so my complaint with him is not necessarily in performance. It actually probably goes back to spectacle, that when he dies of old age, they haven't aged him a day. He just looks like the same character from 20 years ago. Like when they age up Jessica Chastain, it works. Like they age her up. They like his face doesn't change at all.
He had like yellowish hair in the earlier scenes. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Like they barely tried.
I mean, they make him look a little rough in the bed when he's like got the.
He looks fine. He could have gotten up.
I mean, like they really
he's
like
just lying about that too. He's just taking
sleeping.
a nap.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to work
the bony
anymore.
hands.
He just doesn't want to work anymore. The fingers.
The crickle fingers.
Oh.
Also, big shout out to Tars and Case.
Yes, they get some of the best lines.
Oh, absolutely.
The ability, because I'll be honest, right? Approaching this from kind of like, this has got a very 2001 feel, and they introduce Tars like, I am immediately suspicious. Yeah, like I don't trust this, but then like the interaction between him and McConaughey is so
perfect.
good.
There's so many moments where he's like, what's your humor setting at? 100%. Drop that to 75. And he's like, what's your honesty at? He's like 90. And he's like, because you can't be 100%. So that's when
him to Brand.
Dr. Brand is over here giving him 100%. So Matthew McConaughey or Cooper's like 90% then Dr. Brand, like basically saying, hey girl, like,
yeah. I thought it was the reverse where Cooper was giving her 100%.
Oh,
she's
okay.
like, I don't need this kind of honesty. He's like, what's your honesty? He's like 90%. 90% sounds good.
Yeah. I think it works either way because she was being too brutally honest with him and he was being too like open and
emotionally available or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the bit where like when he first like is interacting with Case. He's like, you don't say a whole lot, do you, Case? Like Tars says enough for both of us.
I know.
Like, well, I'll be honest, right? Mm-hmm. So again, we've kind of brought up Star Wars a lot in this.
Yeah.
So obligatory Star Wars reference or whatever, I don't know.
There you go. Count it.
But like the droids in Star Wars, right, are oftentimes some of the most human characters, the most relatable characters.
They are.
In a lot of ways, especially as you get older. C-3PO is going to really resonate with you, let me tell you.
Oh, damn.
So seeing the two robots here and like their interaction is it felt very similar. Where it was like, man, I am connecting really well with these big blocks of metal.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a little uncanny.
It is because it's like, man, like I think these guys are saying what I'm thinking a lot of the time.
But also like when he turns Tars back on, like at the end.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, what's your humor settings at right now? He's like 100%. Okay, let's tone that down to 75. Self-destruct initiate. Do you want to make it 60?
Yeah. 75.
So I think it's David Gyasi, who played the
doctor that stayed behind.
Yeah.
Romilly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Romilly. His little bit whenever they come back up from the first planet is just so heartbreaking.
Well, it is because it's like it's that immediate like knowledge of how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Because like you're okay, 7 they were down there for what, like I don't know, like 15 minutes of movie time, but what is that, like an hour and a half real time? And you're trying to like figure, and she's like decades, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy been up here for like 25 years, and then like he opens the thing and his like behavior and like it's like a dude that's been shut up in a place for
Well, and also like it's such a good juxtaposition of a scene because for Coop and Brand, what just happened is very raw, very real, very recent, and for him, it's the slow wearing of time, right?
Yeah.
And of course, he's just kind of like, I don't understand. They're both still like trying to get their wits back
their
together.
bearings,
because they just had a catastrophic
and Doyle's
event.
just lost.
Yeah.
They just discovered, hey, we just wasted a tremendous amount of time.
And speaking of that, there's some really good trivia with the track that is we're a little bit ahead of score here, but just the track
go ahead into it
that happens called Mountains, where basically every single tick that happens
is a second.
It's a year.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's a year back on Earth.
The music
so
counts it out.
Here's a bit of trivia about that real when they're on it. So several tracks of Hans Zimmer's original score were recorded at the tempo of a beat per second, 60 beats per minute, precisely matching the passage of time, a recurring theme of the movie. The key scenes include Imperfect Lock, No Time for Caution, the docking scene, and very portions of Stay, Mountains, and Detach. Mm-hmm. So like they're very much like it's in rhythm with actual like a clock. Like you could like sync the song up with a watch and it would like be right in time with it, which I thought was like that's the kind of stuff that Hans Zimmer does sometimes. It's like no one's gonna notice this, but it's fun that you put the effort into it. You know what I mean?
When you do notice it, you're like, ooh, yeah.
Basically, when you read the trivia about it, you're like, did I actually pick it up? I did not pick up.
I did not pick that. Yeah,
but I'm gonna tell other people that I did. By God,
right? I could tell.
Push my glasses up real quick.
I got my grandfather's pocket watch out, and I could hear it clicking right with the music.
Well, you don't have a metronome next to your 75-inch TV?
Yeah. Tuck, tuck. Okay, so let's just move into score. What did you guys think about the score?
Okay, so
it's Hans Zimmer, right?
These ticks happen every 1.25 seconds. Each tick you hear is a whole day passing on Earth.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Yep.
Wow.
So it is measuring the passage of time, but in a manner that is going to be really hard to count because we need to count out 23 years worth of days.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thanks, Hans.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for that.
But that kind of amount to detail is just how far Hans Zimmer is going to go, but then also Christopher Nolan to make sure that he had this concept and he's like, look, this is what's going to happen on the planet. I want this to kind of be an indication. And Hans Zimmer was like, I got you, fam.
Well, just
right, it is like that.
The production under, like the attitude of the production as a whole with Nolan in charge, it's such that when Hans kind of brings up this idea, it doesn't just get discarded as dumb or like, well, how long is it going to take you to come up with? It's like, oh yeah, let's try that. Let's do that. Add that in there. See if we can make this work.
Well, and I know Hans Zimmer really, whenever he got pulled into this and Christopher Nolan wanted this score to be something completely different than what people would normally think of for like a
space movie.
A space movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Hans Zimmer was like, okay, I want it to be more orchestral and more opera oriented than it is for anything else. And
there's a lot of organ in it too.
Yeah.
It's like you don't really hear that in like space stuff.
Yeah, you really don't. And really good callbacks to 2001 Space Odyssey and those kind of films compared to some of the newer stuff that we've had, obviously Star Wars, John Williams, Star Trek, those kind, where I think this is just the perfect soundtrack for this film.
It's very much so a callback to 2001 Space Odyssey,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Play Mountains.
Mountains.
I want to hear it. We're not going to hold it
any
here the whole
specific
thing.
part of mountains?
Play the mountains. Country roads. take me
really
home.
just probably like the last like 30 or 40 seconds.
Mountain Mama.
You just sing that over this song. Tick-tock, tick-tock.
There's an actual clock in this, just in case you didn't get it, nerds.
Well, and the best part about it, because this is such a fantastic track, because like for them, the characters, they're looking at what they think are mountains, and then they're just like, oh no, that's a wave.
Oh yeah.
And this is a big problem.
I remember in the theater when like that twist happens and you're like, oh, hold on. You got to get out now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, what a cool idea. Like, what a way to like.
Well, and the idea of just, because like they've already explained before they went down, they're like, if we do this, it's going to cost us so much time.
Yeah.
But he has a thing, and they're not thinking ahead in the actual time dilation of how long that guy's been down there.
Right.
That's one of my complaints.
What?
Yes. This is really obvious math for these very intelligent people.
But that's the thing. Humans are emotional beings.
Oh, I'm aware. I get that that's part of like the theme involved in it. Mm-hmm. There are other issues with like, hey, we're gonna escape Earth because Earth is failing, and our life raft is circling the drain as well.
Yeah.
Concept instead of trying one of the other planets first.
Right.
No, one of my big complaints here is. It's not just, hey, you understand very well the consequence for you time-wise. You should understand how little data Miller is going to have had time to gather compared to how long it's taking you to get here.
But see, they didn't know till they went through the black hole. Like
they didn't know until they went through the wormhole.
Or wormhole.
But like at that point, it should be pretty obvious this is like a last resort. Like it's already kind of presented as a last resort. It's the closest to the black hole. It's the least stable.
Right.
Like there's a lot of issues in terms of like we're gonna choose this as when it's essentially circling the drain.
Yeah.
That play into like the whole science of these waves, right?
Yeah.
Like anything that close to that much gravity is going to have monstrous tidal effects by default. Like it will not be a stable planet.
Right.
Just
But that, I mean, like,
period.
and that's kind of the thing is, again, like they are looking at it from the perspective of this is like, as far as we know, like this is all like, this is a good planet. It's just really close to this, you know, to this black hole. But from their perspective, they're just emotional beings, and they have to justify it in some way. And yeah, they probably should have.
But I'm pretty sure
the fact that they were still receiving data
Right,
and
but I think
messages tripped them up too. They thought that
also in that message, I'm pretty sure when they discuss it, they even mentioned, well, we only have gotten so many thumbs up from Miller.
right.
But whereas the other two were flooding them with data.
Yeah.
Like that should have also been the tell of
Like a key.
like that was kind of a giveaway of what part of the problem was going to be here was, well, this person has only been on this planet for an hour relative to your time passage.
To your time passage.
Because they were sent out not quite 10 years ahead.
I think it was like a decade.
And they had it was the math. I can't remember.
It
what
wasn't
the math
exact.
exactly
It was
was.
about a
But
decade.
it was about right for because when they said 1 hour down there is going to be 7 years for us.
Right.
I had a moment of, oh, this person's barely been on this planet.
Yeah.
Like just almost immediately just from what they've given us.
If that was a habitable planet, that'd be like the best gig. You show up, looks good. Oh, you're here.
Right? Wow.
I haven't even unpacked. Come on in.
I haven't even changed my suit yet. You know, like well,
hasn't even gotten
calm down.
dark yet. I don't know what the day-night cycle's like here. You know.
Well, and I guess the other thing is too, from that perspective, there's no indication that basically that there is a catastrophic death wave that goes around this planet that would cause this. As far as they're concerned, he's still alive. It just hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the concept of like, oh, they should expect him to have died something catastrophic, but like the idea that he's barely been there, he or she, I can't remember which.
I think it's a she.
I think it's a she. Yeah. But the idea that they have barely been there should have been really obvious to them, especially as much time as they emphasize on explaining this to each other. It should have come up. In a sense, and this is my first bit of like, this feels kind of stupid. Like, what are y'all doing? And then, like when they said, oh well, it's right on the edge of the black hole. I was like, boy, this planet's subject to an awful lot of bad gravitational effects right now.
Well, and eventually it's going to get sucked in.
Yeah, like also
Right, that was my first thought. Was like, do we want to be right by the drain?
A life raft that has holes in it. Like, will it float for now? Sure, but like, can you guarantee that we can rebuild civilization quickly enough to get off of here in 100 years? Like,
they just fly everybody there. All right, we got all of Earth here. Hold on, what's happening? Yeah. Okay, we're going right into the black hole, everybody. It was a good run.
So, like, it was one of these things where I was like, man, this feels like it should have been the last resort option. Obviously, for the plot and for the tension, like, it's a fantastic sequence of action that lets other things trigger. It just feels like to get us there first, it feels like the wrong choice, ultimately, right?
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah,
I think it was ultimately.
I mean, it was, obviously, for the plot and everything else. It felt more like this happened because we needed some sort of action to happen to push the plot forward, as opposed to this would have been the rational choice of presumably some of the current smartest people alive kind of maneuver. You know what I mean? Like, it just, it's one of the things when like, as they were going through this, I was just like, what is going on?
I think you're valid in what you're saying there.
Yeah, I
like,
think so too.
I don't agree with it from the standpoint of like, I never read the situation like that of like, these idiots. I just read it more like, they don't know what they're doing. Once they cross into the horizon, it's like,
race.
What are we doing? I guess we got to go here.
Super
like
uncharted territory.
Yeah.
It's just, so I looked into some of the science of the waves, right? Just because in my initial thought was, that's really not possible. It is, but you need that planet to be doing some funky chicken dance in its rotation around the black hole. And so, like, if it's tidally locked, again, these are things super obvious to these people observing this planet. Like, it's pretty safe as long as you don't go to two sides of the planet. if it's doing a wobble, that's what creates the death wave.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's one of these things where it also kind of felt like, well, that should be pretty observable. Like, I'm not saying they have telescopes and time to sit there and stare at.
Well, that's the thing is, like, they've said that they can't, like
see
Earth
through,
people can't see through the wormhole.
No, I'm not talking about the Earth people. I'm talking about the 4 or 5 people on the ship who come through.
But even then, like, they don't have like the observational technology,
we have no idea.
Just
really.
because they're scientists doesn't mean that they're planetary orbital scientists.
I mean, fair.
Because that's the thing is, like, you can have really smart people in the room that have no idea how to turn on a toaster.
But like the thing
That's
is,
me. Yes, I'm very smart, and I don't know how these hot boxes make the good bread. Tell me.
I guess where I'm really going for here is, without any observation of, hey, it's doing precisely what we need it to do. Once you say, hey, it's right here, the gravitational effects are going to be horrendous on this planet. Like, it should basically render it not habitable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. The other thing is too, because Matthew McConaughey is definitely the one that pushes to go down there.
A bit, yeah.
Because by all means, he is not a scientist at all. He is only worried about getting down there, finding the thing, going back home. Because at this point, he doesn't know it's not a one-way trip.
But again, from that perspective, the best choice isn't the one that takes the longest to do.
But I'm trying to remember, isn't the reason he wants to go down there, wasn't it because like it had the most promising signs of something else?
Yeah.
Like
it had water and whatnot, right?
It had like all the ingredients that like the other ones had some of the ingredients. This
but
was
this one
like
had all
this
of
is
it.
It checked all the boxes. Like the big thing for
breathable
me,
air, that kind of stuff.
The big thing for me wasn't just like, hey, like, again, like, let's jump out of the frying pan into the fire of, we're going to circle the drain of a black hole real quick.
Yeah.
It's also like, hey, this is by definition, even if it's the shortest one to fly to, it will always be the one that takes the longest, which impacts back home. Mm-hmm. And then also we get later motivation of Brand. Well, Brand just wants to go to this other planet because she's in love. Well, then why wasn't she pushing for that choice right off the gate?
She was.
Yeah, she did.
Did she? Okay. So I couldn't remember if that was how.
No, she was all about.
Because I felt like it really only came up at Edmondson.
It really came up later.
And that was.
But she definitely did try and push in tertiary conversation.
At least
be like, it's over here.
Yeah, that's at least fair.
Yeah.
I still just, I don't know. I guess if it was just me, it'd be like, hey, we're last hope for humanity, 3 choices. Can we pick the one the furthest from the black hole?
Right, let's start there, work our way back.
Best resources, but you know what resource we really don't have? What about a couple extra million years before we hit the black hole? I can like,
let's give a little more runway.
We can figure out carbon later or whatever.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So
Anyway,
since we're in plot,
that was a very long segue. Yeah,
that's okay. We're in plot now. What did you think about the plot, Andrew?
I mean, so the only thing that really,
what'd you like about the plot? Let's spin positive for a little bit.
I mean, I would just say like everything. I just like
without saying all of it. What did you like about the plot?
You put me on the spot here.
I'll lead off.
Yeah,
I got one
this.
plot moment specifically that like I always turn to when it comes to this movie, and that is the scene where he's playing back the messages.
Oh, man,
right?
don't take that. That's going to be my entertainment.
You should have said it. Well, listen, here's my plot reason for it. I love the transition that happens when they switch from him listening to her leaving the message in the same scene.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
it just
really
like,
well set
boom,
up.
and it goes right over to her, and you're like, oh my. And also in that scene, before it gets to that point, when the music just stops, when Casey Affleck goes off screen, when Tom stops, it's like, oh, like it just hurts even more. But specifically that plot of like, oh, now we're gonna follow Murph's story. Also, we're not just gonna be,
it's
you know,
a good segue.
It's a really well done transition.
Yeah, and for me, every time it happens, I'm always like, oh, that's how you transition, you know, because it is a total shift in what we're going to be focusing on, but it doesn't feel abrupt. It doesn't feel like rushed. It's like well done. So that's one of my favorite plot points is right there where not only do we have the huge emotional, you know, just gut punch of like him having to watch
his
20 some odd years of his kids, but then it's her being older than him now.
Yeah.
When he, you know, and then the switch to her and what she's dealing with
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine's character. I can't think of his name.
Dr. Brand.
Brand. Oh yeah, it's Brand's
it's
dad.
so easy. It's Dr. Brand and Dr. Brand.
Dr. Brand and Dr. Brand. Yeah.
For me, I really just love the concept of time dilation. I watch a lot of other like sci-fi anime or whatever that really deals with a lot of that. And it's definitely one of my favorite, like I'll say, quotation time travel tropes that really, because it's real. It does actually exist. And that like if we were going to, planets that were near black holes and that kind of stuff, it would do that.
Well, even traveling, if theoretically, let's say we can get up to close to light speed, right? It becomes a problem then as well. It does. Where, sure, we could explore further into the galaxy, but what's happening at home? Like home is, the people all we know are going to be dead by the time we come back.
Right. By the time you get where you're going,
everyone's already dead. Like and that's kind of one of the biggest concepts with a lot of like hard sci-fi for like saving the planet or saving the human race is that it's not that you need to save the people that are on the planet. They're already dead. There's nothing you can do about that. Right. You need to basically create a colony ship, which is what they did in this film, and then send it somewhere else. That's the human race now. Everyone that's on the planet, sorry guys, you live out your life. That's it.
Them's the bricks, kid.
And it's not because it's a heartless choice. It's the reality of how space travel works. Right. Because space is so big and it takes so long to do it. You have to have a generational ship to basically be able to traverse the cosmos. Because once you get out of the solar system, you've got nothing.
Right.
For a long time.
Eons,
the book Hocus Pocus, Kurt Vonnegut, he gets into that a bit in there, where he talks about how humans are like the character is thinking about how the humans are spectacularly unsuited for space travel.
Yeah,
like we have all these requirements. We're so large, it's hard to move us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I like that. Reading that, I don't even know how many decades ago at this point. Oh gosh,
it was probably the 60s.
When
you read it,
whenever I read it,
you were in the 60s.
He probably wrote it in the 60s or probably, 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. But like when I hit that line, because Vonnegut is, I wouldn't put Vonnegut in the same realm as like Arthur C. Clarke, where it's like hard sci-fi. No, but he deals with sci-fi concepts a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like just kind of casually encountering that line in the middle where like, well, the main thing that humans have going for them for space travel is they're so arrogant to believe that it's possible they can do it.
Right.
That what's going to happen is they're going to create something that can, and it's going to end up being a virus or a bacteria.
Yeah.
Which is typically what actually could make it and survive a journey, right?
Yeah.
But I really like the concept of the colony ship.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other authors who have dealt with these concepts or something adjacent to, or time dilation. If you've ever read Ender's Game, the end of that book deals with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go on for too long, honestly, about that kind of stuff.
But I think beyond just the concept of time dilation, which I think they cover really well in this movie, I also like just the way the plot handles the relationship between Coop and Murph, both when they're young and older. Now,
it's very emotional at its core.
Yeah.
Some of the mental gymnastics that you have to jump through at the end whenever he goes into the black hole is just kind of hands up. You're like, well, we don't know.
I'm not part of the fifth dimension. I don't know. Yeah. But like for me, the only part of the plot that really could be different, and I don't know if it would be better or not, is if they ended it ambiguously instead of it having kind of the happy ending at the end.
The bow.
Yeah. Which isn't, again, I don't dislike the happy ending. I'm here for it. It just feels like a bit rushed at the end for all that you've been through. Like they could have very easily ended it, with before he wakes up, and that's just the end of the movie, and you're left with like, wait, what happened? We don't know.
So I definitely feel that traditional hard sci-fi,
that's not a Western filmmaking thing, though.
No, but that's like Inception with the top. That's like, I feel like Christopher Nolan has done ambiguous
willing
before.
To take the risk with it,
right.
But I think that like traditionally hard sci-fi normally has bittersweet endings, where
this is a pretty bittersweet.
A little bittersweet, but
he does all of what he does, right, is ultimately to save his daughter.
It's mostly useless.
Well, it's not that it's not useless. It pays off, but when he gets back, he doesn't really get to enjoy the payoff. Like he saves the human race.
Yeah.
But he's there with his daughter on her deathbed, and she tells him to go away. She has her family, her kid. Like he lost all of the time.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, the calculation here is you were only there for the first 10 or 11 years of my life. My life is, she's in her 90s or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so much
She's
of my
got
life
kids, grandkids.
Yeah, she's got great grandkids or whatever there.
Yeah.
And like, this is who she has the connection with. It's not him anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I think that absolutely checks the box.
Oh, no, it does.
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet,
And, and then there is the caveat that of how time dilation works. It's like, hey, we found you sitting out here, and if you go now, she's just now setting up camp on the planet where Edmonds was or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And you can at least go be with her.
Yeah.
Which even then, like, their interaction was what, maybe like
There was never really a
3
time
weeks
where we set up like a whole like there could be something here.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's the thing.
what?
Is like, well, so he's
But
only
she's
going,
also, at this point, the only person he knows who's still alive.
Also true.
He at least has 3 weeks of like getting to know her. Everybody else, like, I have no clue who any of
Yeah.
these people
Well, also
are.
like, how do you? I mean, with his last name, how do you hang out with anyone on that station normally?
Sure.
right? Like you're a legend reborn.
Oh, I think
essentially.
Matthew McConaughey could do it.
Oh, you'd be like, could he crack open a beer?
Let me tell you, when I went across the horizon, he would just tell that story over and over. Everybody would be like, yay!
So the biggest issue I have, and this is just generally with any kind of, I'll say, time travel adjacent stuff, is I always have an issue where the reason why someone leaves is themselves.
Yeah,
It-
circular reasoning is not.
That's just not how it works, or how it should work, I guess. But there are a bunch of other smarter people than me that write this stuff or
There
whatever.
are a lot
but
of them out there.
it does,
There sure are.
yeah, probably. But it does feel a little trite that he's just like the reason why he left.
See, I disagree. I feel like if they did anything else other than that, it would have been cheesy.
It would have been cheesy because, like, if it would have been actual like interdimensional beings,
Yeah, like what's
or
the
whatever,
alternative that like
yeah.
the squishy hand that touches
shiny
Anne Hathaway?
lights,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
I get it.
Yeah.
Like so that was the only option that he had.
To me, it's a good option. Like I
No.
found it satisfying.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I like this. That like he's the reason he's out here, and like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like this is when you can see the fifth dimension and you can pierce the
worst.
veil. Like
I do like the
worst.
way
Not
that
the
they
worst.
did
It's
that
great.
entire sequence, though, which is really cool.
No, the setup and whatever effect
Yeah.
they did to create the like infinite bookshelf.
Well, I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that
yeah.
they actually had him on like wires and
Wires,
stuff.
yeah.
And like in a very small set. Obviously, the rest of it was all like green screened or whatever.
Even
but-
early in the movie, I loved the effect of like the dust settling.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the patterns.
Really, really
and,
cool
like,
there.
Everything was like, and it also to me, I like that like she's like, we've got ghosts, and you immediately write her off as like, what? Like you're ridiculous. You're a kid, and then like you slowly start to realize something's up with this, and then it becomes more of like when you see the scene where he's sitting there like looking in the book and he's
Yeah.
like trying to figure it out, and he's like, it's not Morse, it's binary, and you're like, ooh, okay. Okay, now we're into science. Like, okay,
Yeah.
now it's not just like some kind of like kid thing.
Well, and that's the thing is like I still like the ending doesn't stop me from enjoying the film at all.
Right? No,
Like
no,
it's because it's still a very good emotional climax where
Yeah.
he is, he's doing his best to just because of his loss, essentially of his daughter. Like he is like, no, don't go. You need to stay with her. And it's not like, and that's kind of the thing is like the soundtrack says stay. That's not her asking him to stay. That's him asking him to stay.
Right, yeah.
And it's just like whenever you realize that, you're like, oh
yeah.
oh no,
Oh yeah, it hits. Yeah. So I feel like, to me at least, I mean, like that supersedes any kind of like,
yeah, it does. I mean, because it has
Yeah.
a really good.
It's very
underscore.
emotional.
Yeah.
yeah.
The whateverness of the circular self prophecy is
This guy.
just whatever.
I don't know. Maybe I just like stories that have that
No,
kind of stuff in it.
What got me was when she's like, well, maybe it's Morse, but it doesn't seem to work for that. And it's like, okay, we still have some weirdness here, right? And then he's like, oh, it's binary. I was like, crap, it's a person if it's like it's another person communicating with them. And then he made the comment about it being gravity. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I know that this deals with like time. I knew the movie dealt with time dilation, right? Mm-hmm. So at that moment, I was like, I swear to God, if he hits a black hole in this, I'm gonna be so mad. And they go through the wormhole,
Yeah.
and they talk about the first planet. Like, well, it's right next to Gargantuan. What's Gargantuan? It's a huge black hole. I like paused the film, so it was like, God,
So why does that make you mad though? Like, see, if I had figured that out, I would have been excited. I would have been like, awesome, we're going to a black hole. He's going to talk to himself through time. This rules.
Again, I don't like the concept of him being the instigator of what makes it possible to travel, right? Because she talks about, well, they put the wormhole there.
Right.
When did Matthew McConaughey do that in the black hole? He doesn't.
He doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, so then how does he get there? He can't. How does any of this happen? It doesn't. Like, for as scientific as we've been this whole way through, it's too reliant on what feels like a gimmick.
See,
if that makes
disagree.
Sense.
I hear what you're saying.
You can totally disagree.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the emotional payoff is really good. The sequence of him in the black hole is good.
Very
him
good.
Communicating with TARS is good. Everything about it is good. It's just, it feels like we put a whole bunch of weight on two sides of a really thin board.
See, to me, no. The theme that like ties it together is when Anne Hathaway has the whole thing where she's talking about love, right? And she's like, it is something that, like, why do we mourn the dead? Like, you know, this isn't a scientific thing that we've got like, figured out, right?
It goes across space and time.
Yeah, and so when we get to these beings that are from the future, they knew that the only way this man could send messages through time is because he loves his daughter. Let me finish the sentence, Stephen. You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew that the only way this would have even been possible and that this humanity would exist to evolve into fifth dimensional beings is if this one dude really loved his daughter and he would do some wild stuff like send gravitational waves back through time. That's it. That's the only way any of this happens. It's the only way for it to happen.
So
to me.
Are you telling me right now that Interstellar and The Fifth Element take place in the same universe?
100%.
It sure sounds like you are.
Yes.
I don't know anything about The Fifth Element, but maybe.
We have got to get this man.
We do need to get this man watching The Fifth Element.
Is that a movie or is that a TV show?
Were you entertained, Andrew?
I was very entertained. I love this movie.
I really love this movie too.
So my favorite entertainment bit, outside of the incredibly emotional scene whenever he comes back up from the first planet and just has a cry fest in front of his TV screen, was the amazing callback to Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama, where whenever he wakes up after going through the black hole and talking to Murph through the gravitational waves, and then he wakes up in the hospital bed, he is basically on essentially a generational colony.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
A cylinder.
A cylindrical colony that, which that is, you know, by general science until, you know, proven otherwise, like that's really the best way to do it.
To do, that type of thing.
As best as we've solved.
Yeah, because that's the thing is you need it to rotate so you have gravity, all this other kind of nonsense or whatever. And
just nonsense, just gravity.
Just
nonsense.
But I love just that general concept. And whenever it popped up in a movie that I was already blown away by, I was just so excited in the theater.
You were double sold on like, cool.
Yeah.
Steven, were you entertained?
I was.
Yeah.
Again, this is a film where like 25 minutes into it, I had a pretty good suspicion where it was going. And then I don't know at what point we hit it. I literally paused and sat up and said a few, 4-letter words.
Yeah.
But like at the point where we hit with Matt Damon, and I had heard someone reference the coward. And so I had, again, some idea of where this might head.
Yeah.
Like it still had me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I mean that whole sequence.
The whole sequence from the moment when he loses the transponder and his helmet's cracked, up to the point where they have successfully docked with the station, is intense.
Yeah. Dude, that docking with the station scene, man,
everything going on in that sequence is off the charts, right?
Yeah,
and especially for a film that's been fairly slow. It's had a few bursts. We've had a few moments.
That's definitely like one of the crescendos of like...
and like the music's going... Like everything was coming together in this point.
Well, and I remember in the theater, like it was like a gasp of air after that scene ended.
Everybody like finally breathed again. Yeah.
So also, I really liked in the middle of that when they're like, he doesn't know the docking sequence. I had a moment where I was like, wait, Doyle was the one that knew the docking. Who's been docking this stupid thing? And he's like, TARS, get back. Okay, good. All right. Thank you.
Right.
I had a bit where I was just like, wait, hold up. Is this something that only some people know?
Yeah, right.
Did we lose the only person?
Surely they would cross-train, right?
Right, yeah.
For this very reason.
Like, surely there's a, like Apollo 13 here, you can pull out the reference manual and flip through it, right? Like something, anything?
Oh, that would have been even more tense. They're spinning towards the thing, and he's flipping through the book.
Through it.
Hold on, wait.
Dude, if that had been part of it, where like Anne Hathaway is in the back frantically, like, he's like, page 24. They're spinning and she can't get the book.
It's stuck together. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
One, that would have been intense. And two, it probably would have given Anne Hathaway a little more to do.
Probably, yeah.
So I think my favorite moment in that whole sequence is right after Matt Damon just like completely bucks the whole thing and everything's going haywire and you just see them looking at this just from the outside and then like you can see like the gears turning in his head and he's like, I got to do this.
There's nothing.
Right.
Like,
there's nothing else I can do. Otherwise,
we die. It's such a long shot.
Yeah.
Every other shot's 0.
Yeah.
Right.
Take the long shot.
Take the long shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just such an amazing like moment. We were like, oh, he's gonna do this.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You're like, I can't wait to see this happen.
This whole part's been such a like an action heavy sequence that like you're like, yeah, let's go. Like let's make this work. Whereas everything else has been science. Big wave, science. I
think the other scene that's like similar to it, but not near as like intense, is when they're like going down to the wave planet, and he's like doing the like
the spiral. See,
he's like, hang on, I can get us down quicker. He's like, wah!
Yeah, to me that almost felt like unnecessary action. Like they could have just like been like, all right, we're going, and they could have just been on the planet and with them disembarking, and we maybe could have saved a couple minutes, and then we get wrecked by a big wave.
Right.
Like that's plenty of action for this. Like we just didn't. It almost felt false. I don't know.
Okay, see, to me, it was like selling his
piloting skills.
Well, not only that, it's how much he wants to get back to his kids.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna spiral this thing.
I'm gonna shave every second I can, everywhere else I can. Yeah. Well, and then also when they're like, well, we don't have so much time. How much time until the engines dry out? Well, I'm gonna blow the air. It's like, you could have done that 30 minutes ago.
Right. Well, I think
there's no guarantee it works.
What they didn't say that I read was like it's very dangerous, and they could have just exploded the ship when they did that.
If it tries to push too much water, it can't actually push it.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. There can be justifications. They just didn't give us.
They didn't give any right there. No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the time on this episode is dilating to the point that we need to wrap it up, boys.
Ooh, look at that, spicy.
So we're going to talk about our Patreon.
He was waiting for that line for a while.
I actually just came up with it. Let's talk about our Patreon, right?
Yeah.
For $1 a month, you get
Just
access to all of our bonus episodes, everything we've ever done. Plus, we do at least one bonus episode a month. One of my recent favorites was the Adaptation Assassination, where we all three aired our grievances about different fantasy books that have been adapted. I talked about The Witcher. Steven talked about Wheel of Time. Andrew talked about The Hobbit. It was
the thing.
It was a thing.
It sure happened.
Yeah, that sure did happen. But we got all sorts of stuff on there. These aren't like our normal episodes.
We've got really cool a chips ranking episode where our eyes were opened to a lot of different chip flavors.
A whole new world of flavor.
Yeah.
If you will. Chat GPT, we got some science in here, giving us some suggestions on movie titles.
Science with a big asterisk.
Science. Come on, it's hot
basically
right now.
TARS.
It's basically TARS.
He's Chat GPT.
But gave us some movie suggestions, some movie names, and then we tried to come up with who would be in this movie, what would be the plot, and it gets all over the place. I think we came up with some really fun stuff.
And if you want to check any of these out, we put 15-minute previews in our main feed. So like,
try before you buy.
Check them out. Like if you're laughing, listen to the full episode. Throw us $1.
It's just for $1.
Yeah.
You also get commentaries if you want to enjoy some Mystery Science Theater 3000 style action, where it's like we're right there on the couch with you as you watch the film. You can dial that up for several. Again, that there is also not just a preview, but the whole Phantom Menace commentary is in the main feed
right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is too is that if Patreon isn't your thing, totally fine.
Yeah.
You can toss us a share or
we
like,
love your support,
rating
a review
on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
Just text a friend. Hey, check this podcast out. I think you'd like it.
We would greatly appreciate it.
Always.
All right. Well, that sounds about like all the time we have. Until next time, I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.